Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And on today's show, we talk about all the things Illini fans can be grateful for.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us the #1 sports network in the country. My name is Sunny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I continue to provide you coverage each and every day, asking for nothing in return. But if you don't mind, if you can hit that like button, spread that holiday cheer, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Again, today, it's a holiday, so I wanted to kind of take a different approach to today's episode. Obviously, on Friday, we've got a huge matchup against UConn. I'll be live immediately after that game. I'll try to get a preview up before that game as well. But I feel like after that, what do we call it? A debacle against Wisconsin on Saturday evening, a lot of Illini fans seem to be a little bit down. And so what I wanted to do, the responsibility I gave myself was to try to cheer everybody up. But I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. So I closed my eyes and I had to think, who is arguably even more positive of an Illini fan than I am? And I think there's one name that came to mind, and I'm so grateful that the Connor Pills decided to join me for the chat. Connor, we've been talking about getting you on the show for so long. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head. I think I've kind of been tagged as like the most positive Illini fan, even to the point of annoying people quite often. And I don't try to do that. I just genuinely, like, that's the way I am. I've always been a glass half full type of guy. Obviously, it's okay to make criticisms and stuff and acknowledge when things aren't going quite right. But I always feel like I like to step in and remind people, like, we're in a great spot, especially compared to where we used to be, as people that have been fans for a long time, as a guy that went to the school, right, like we both did. I think things could be a lot worse. And obviously that's not necessarily to say like we shouldn't expect more, but I think it's always good to kind of stop and smell the roses once in a while and just remind ourselves, like, you know what, we're doing just fine.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think, Connor, you stick out so much with your overt fandom because for the most part, this fan base leans so negative. Even when things are going well, like when the slightest thing goes awry, fans just want to, embrace that negative and, wallow or whatnot. And, of course, I say that tongue in cheek, but we've got a really passionate fan base. And, I'm really grateful for that. It's one of the reasons this channel has grown so incredibly fast in such a short amount of time. But in the second segment, you and I will kind of list a couple things that we really are super grateful for and thankful for, in the modern day era of being an Illini fan. But before we get started, I'm glad I have you on. I just want to get your thoughts. Let's talk basketball. Let's talk football. Let's go, the football season's ending. Give me your thoughts on the football season so far. We obviously have the Landon Lincoln game on Saturday. Hopefully we can end the season with 8, maybe 9 wins if you win a bowl game. But I feel like a lot of the positive energy has kind of gone out. What are your impressions of our Illini football program as a whole?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, even just like people that are not affiliated with Illinois in any way, ask me over the past couple of days, like, how are you feeling about Illinois football? Because obviously, there was so much buildup, so much momentum, so much hype going into the season. I think last year there wasn't that. So the fact that it ended in 10 wins, a bowl win, right? I think that was kind of unexpected in a sense. Like, we knew it'd be a decent season, but I don't think anyone would have predicted 10 wins and a win over South Carolina in the Citrus Bowl, right? So I think coming off of that, it's impossible for this season not to feel like a letdown. Like, even as positive guys, right? Like, we're going to keep it real about that.
Sure.
But I think like where I kind of take the other reverse approach to it and like to remind myself is the fact that 5, even 10, 15 years ago, if you would have told an Illini fan 7 or 8 wins is going to be your floor, I think we all would have hands down signed up for that, right? So I think that's kind of like what I like to remind myself when it's like, yeah, compared to maybe playoff aspirations, maybe, I think we looked at our schedule, maybe we lose to Ohio State, maybe Indiana. I don't think a lot of people expected or obviously wanted to lose more than that. But again, I think when you consider I don't know how it was when you were at school, but I assume it wasn't that great. Same with me, like the football team. I think I saw only a single-digit amount of home wins in my 4 years, and I was at every one of them. No fair weather fans out here. I think when you consider the fact that again, underachieving for us is still 7, potentially 8 wins if we take care of Northwestern, and obviously still going to a bowl game. I think that definitely puts it in perspective. Obviously, it's fair to be disappointed. I am too. I think a lot of us kind of had those expectations. Luke coming back, a lot of guys coming back. One of the top returning rosters in the country. But I think again, I'll kind of put a button on it with that. When your floor and your underachievement is a lot more than a lot of people did in the country and a lot more than we've done in the past 5, 10, 20, 50 even years, I think that kind of puts in perspective.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a different era, and I understand that now we're in the social media era, which it was prevalent, but maybe not as much as it was certainly when I was in school back then. Even the worst case scenario now, you're talking about an Illinois football program. If they lose on Saturday and they lose their bowl game, still in 2 years, this program's won 17 games. In 2 years, they've had above 500 seasons, and as low of a bar as that might be, still, that is an achievement for when you consider the whole context of Illinois football history. And the difference is, for the first time in a very long time, I do have a lot of confidence in the guy who's in charge. I think Bret Bielema has seen the debacle that happened in Washington. Certainly, there's no way he wanted to lose the game against Wisconsin in the fashion that they did. And because we're going to have a roster overhaul, I think Bret now has the ability, and now I think he has the motivation to really take a look around that locker room and see what kind of changes need to be made. He came in, took over a program that had nothing, and he's built us to the point where now we are a respectable program. I don't think anyone can argue that. Our goal was always the day he was hired was, hey, make us into Iowa, make us into Wisconsin. We've surpassed Wisconsin. Well, granted they beat us on Saturday. But, when it comes to tiers in the Big Ten Conference, he's done what we asked him to do 5 years from now or 5 years ago. And so now it's a simple matter of, do we trust him moving forward, taking Illinois to the next step? Me, personally, I do. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I do as well. I honestly, to put it simply, I don't think he's given us a reason not to. And I think that's kind of just the way I roll. I'm kind of going to be on board, especially when he has that proven track record, until he gives me a reason not to. And at this point, I think, like you're saying, and kind of going back to my initial point where it's now, given the expectations, it's easy to say, oh, well, maybe Bret's not the guy. He underperformed. Look at all the talent he had. He had Luke coming back. He only, won 7 or 8 games, which again, 7 or 8 games. But I think, again, when you can compare it to when he came here, where was this football program at? I think, again, I talk back to my undergrad. I mean, no one was at the games. Yeah. It was, it's funny. I came from in high school, senior year, my football team won state. And then I prepared myself coming to Illinois. I was like, you're not going to have good sports. And that was just something I had to be okay with. Yeah. And I still loved going to the games, still tailgating, have a great time, basketball games as well. But I think when you look at the program Bret inherited, I was literally praying on my hands and knees for relevance. Not even for a bowl win, not even for a 10-win season, not for the playoffs, for relevance. I wanted to be able to talk to people about Illini football, people be excited about Illini football. And again, I think, my junior year, we beat Wisconsin on a walk-off field goal. It was one of the biggest upsets in college football history. And that, for me, I thought that was as good as it was ever going to get. I could not have imagined that in a couple of years we'd be 10 wins, beating the hottest team in the SEC for the Citrus Bowl. So I think, again, maybe I put it in perspective more than people would like sometimes. They just want to be in there. And I totally get it. I don't want to tell anyone how to fan, for sure. But I think, again, keeping it in perspective and thinking against this year's expectations / hopes, it's easy to say Bret underperformed. But I think at the end of the day, the guy across from you is still a college football player in Division I, right? I think at the end of the day, sometimes it comes down to you get beat. And I think, Bret, I think, did a great job. Obviously, there's room for improvement. I think everyone would admit that. And I think, depending on what moves he wants to make on the staff, players, et cetera, obviously got a lot of guys moving on, including Luke. But yeah, I'm fully on the Brett train. I know we'll get into basketball as well, but I think it's a great spot to be in, especially given some of the coaches we've had in the past where I'm like, take the wheel, Brett and Brad. I fully trust you guys to get it done. And I think, again, they have not given us any reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah, I just want to jump on an earlier point you made before we move on to basketball. It is hard for me, especially being on this show, to not want to police how other fans want to fan. But for me, it's just the frustration having seen this program so low. Being battling Rutgers for the first or for the worst football team in the conference for so long, for us to be so close, and now seeing the fan base all of a sudden, being disappointed with let's just say hypothetically an 8-win season, and with disappointment, all of a sudden now you're looking to try to sell more season tickets next year. It's not going to be as crowded next year at Memorial Stadium. I fear the idea of reverting back to what it was like pre-Brett Bielema. And, again, the younger fans, the younger folks who watch these shows, they don't quite understand that. They see, unfortunately, Curt Cignetti's just broken the brains of a lot of fans all across the country. And I'm not just saying Illinois, but certainly more so Illinois, because they are a rival in the fact that they're a Big Ten school that's just not so far away, who has a, quite honestly, even worse football history than Illinois does. But Curt is a one in a millennia type of experience. I don't think anyone has performed the job that he's done in Bloomington over there. But moving on from talking about a football program that people are ho-hum about to one I think folks are a lot more excited about, Connor and I were going to discuss basketball right after this. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score next to any fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live plays into a same game parlay for a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, no matter if your team's winning or they're losing. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And welcome back. Okay, now we're going to discuss basketball. The team currently sits at 6-1. A big looming game against the UConn Huskies Friday at Madison Square Garden. For me, the team Brad Underwood doesn't know the identity of the team, so how can I? But, to me, the arrow's still pointing up, but you are the guest, Connor. I'm going to concede the floor to you. You let me know what you think of this basketball team so far this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely the arrow's still pointing up. I think even the most pessimistic of fans would still believe the the arrow's pointing up. I think, obviously, wish you could have took care of business against Alabama. I was there. Were you there as well?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, tough. I mean, result aside, what an atmosphere. I think Brad even mentioned it. He was like, obviously we would have loved to get that done, but seeing again, kind of like football, where the program was, he scheduled a game there was no one there. 5 years later, that place seemed more orange than State Farm Center.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable. So I think that was obviously would have loved to take care of that. But again, Alabama, I think, could be shooting up to a top 5 team in the country. They seem like a Final Four type of team. I don't think they've taken any steps back from where they were, in their past Elite Eight, et cetera, seasons. And we were right with them on a night where we missed 9 free throws and 10 layups, right? So I think obviously there's positives and negatives to take away from that. But
I mean, you played essentially without a center. Tomislav,
right.
He was not Tommy. I mean,
no.
He looked at maybe 40% of what Tomislav can actually bring you. And Z seems to have good Z games and bad Z games. That was a bad Z game. So essentially, you kept it that close against a very good Alabama team who is coached by one of the best coaches in the country. Unfortunately, you're right. You couldn't come out with the win. I know technically it was a home game, but a crazy atmosphere. I like the competitive nature of that experience last Wednesday.
100%. And I think, and again, it shows you what kind of coach Brad is too, that he's taking those risks early in the season. I think you have a lot of teams that kind of shy away from that a little bit, but as I think the new era of college basketball, I think you are seeing that more and more. I think even more so than football, where a lot of, I'm not going to call it the SEC, but they like to schedule some cupcakes and then be like, look how many wins we got. I think basketball is continually they're kind of seeing, hey, if we want to be taken seriously, we need to stack our schedule from the beginning. And I think, I mean, you're playing Alabama, you're playing UConn like in November, before a lot of casual college basketball fans are even tuned in, which, by the way, is definitely a mistake, as you and I know. But yeah, I think the arrow is absolutely pointing up. I think when this team gets fully healthy, and I hate to sound like a broken record on that because that was the story of all last year. I kept telling people, like, just wait till we're fully healthy, and it never really came. This year, I think that'll be different. I don't foresee the mono issues. I don't foresee the puking in the locker room at halftime at Wisconsin.
Find a piece of wood to knock on real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Knocking on wood. But no, absolutely. I think obviously the UConn game is going to be a big challenge. I don't think anyone really expects us to win that game in the national scale, given what happened in March Madness when we played them, and given, you know, the Duke game at Madison Square Garden, which was our last appearance there earlier this year. That being said, this is a different team with different capabilities. I think a much higher floor. And I will say, I know this was the joke last year, a much higher ceiling. I really do think this team, I mean, they've been scoring 90, 100 points without even lighting it up from three. So I think you're bound to have one of those games where the threes are going in, right? And I think as the offense continues to develop, as people start to learn their roles more, Petrovic came in. I think he's going to be huge to open up the floor. I think the sky is honestly the limit for Brad Underwood.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly the floor is raised from last year's team. You know, when it comes to the ceiling, and again, you know, that seems like a buzzword for Illini fans. I swear I got to, you know, just create some sort of merch that says ceiling. My team's ceiling is higher than yours, just to piss off other Big Ten rival fan bases.
Yep.
You know, I think the ceiling is higher as well, just because I think this roster is so much deeper. But no doubt about it, the volatility on this roster is going to be less than last year. You know, it's just tough when you're being led by two freshmen. You have those ups and you have those downs. I don't see that happening as much this season when it comes to players hitting their walls. You know, if a guy like Keaton Wagler, you know, hits a freshman wall, well, then we have a guy like Mihailo Petrovic behind him. Last year when Kasparis hit his freshman wall, we had nobody to really back him up and try to carry the team. Eventually, Will Riley figured it out more so at the end of the year. But, you know, right now we have, you know, 5, 6 guys who on any given night could be the best player on your basketball team. And I just think that just creates an absolute headache for other opposing head coaches and trying to game plan how they're going to face off against this team. But the lines just came out right before you and I started recording. It's UConn plus 8.5. Quite honestly, that's probably about right. And I think if Illinois keeps it to about that level, I think I'll be content with it. For me, Tennessee is going to be the bigger test just because I'm just judging based on what I've seen with my eyes, right? Tommy's just not healthy yet. And so until Tommy gets going, it's hard to judge what the ultimate ceiling of this basketball team is. If he plays the way he did last year, you know, as a potential all Big Ten center, you're adding an all Big Ten center to a team that's already playing like it's one of the top 10 in the country. And you're talking about, you know, an elevated ceiling where, yeah, you can quite honestly start discussing Elite Eight, maybe Final Four type of potential. But if this is just something lingering with Tommy, it's just hard to gauge what this team ultimately looks like. Also, I'm not sure if you saw this, Connor. I'm sure you saw this. Brad Underwood was decked out in the orange tracksuit on his way to Madison Square Garden today, and I've seen you've got the same outfit yourself.
Yeah, no, that was funny timing on that. I was wondering when he was going to pull that out because I saw a press conference, you know, in the summer where he was like, "I'm definitely going to do that."
I saw.
Obviously, he made it the profile picture. Terrence Shannon Jr. made it the profile picture. It was kind of going around. That got some national hype. Yeah, no, I did wear that to United Center. I don't think I quite pulled it off as well as Bratislav there, but no, that was awesome. I think, I think it's awesome. Just even coaching ability aside, to have a coach that's willing to lean into the jokes, lean into the kind of meme culture on the online. Obviously, the passionate fan base on social media. I think one of the more so fan bases in the country as far as activity. I think that's awesome. And yeah, I think kind of going back to what you said, and you said UConn was minus 8.5. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously tough test. They're insanely talented. Obviously Dan Hurley is about as intense as they come. I think Dan Hurley even makes Brad look less intense, which is crazy. Yeah, I think honestly it's a good spot to be in because I feel like a lot of times the Illini really show up most and meet the test when they are kind of the underdogs. They have that chip on their shoulder. I think if you look at the Oregon game last year to kind of draw some comparisons, right? It was like, oh, this young Illini team coming in, I don't know if they're going to be up for the test, in a hostile road environment. They beat them by 40. The game was over in 10 minutes into the game. And I'm not saying definitely that's not going to happen. I expect an absolute battle, a bloodbath even. But I think, coming in, you're in about as good of a spot as you can get. Obviously, you had, in a way, glass half full opportunity here. The Alabama loss is almost like a little bit of that chip on your shoulder. Like, hey, we lost. Let's go show them what we're about. Let's bounce back. And I think if you said we're going to lose to Alabama, beat UConn, I think I would sign up for that all day. So let's go make it happen. I think it's absolutely in the cards.
Yeah, I think you have to win one of two between Alabama and Tennessee. I just feel a little bit more optimistic about the week after game against the Volunteers. I guess my question to you right now, the overall direction of this men's program. Obviously Brad has pivoted a little bit when it comes to recruiting. No longer are we getting top 5 classes in the country. He's kind of looking for guys who has traits that he's looking for, at the prep level, even if they aren't as highly ranked by some of the major recruiting services. But then obviously the big focus is on that European market where, quite honestly, Illinois seems to have built an edge in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a great, and I think honestly, a lot of credit to Brad here for kind of being ahead of the curve there, because I think now you see a lot of other schools kind of following suit. And I think Brad I even think back to guys like Georgie, I think Brad was always kind of interested. Obviously, Georgie wasn't a Brad recruit, but I think you kind of see where that came from, where maybe he even developed a liking for that type of talent. But I think, we mentioned the floor and the ceiling. Coming into this year, one of my initial takeaways was, this team at worst is going to be fine because these guys already have professional experience overseas. Not all of them, but a few of them, right? A couple of these guys played on teams overseas that guys like Nikola Jokic played in before they were in the NBA, right? So they have the experience. I think that's another reason you look back to the Texas Tech game that we kind of dominated the first half and they had that run in the second half where it was like, oh boy, is this when we kind of fall out of it? But these guys they know the pressure. They're not going to fold under any adversity because they know what it's like to be playing. And a lot of times you see very hostile crowds in Europe, right? So I think that was kind of an initial takeaway and something that's proven to be true right away. They're not going to back down from a challenge. They're going to kind of turn up the volume even in the face of adversity. And I think that's going to fare well, obviously, in such a competitive conference and landscape as a whole in college basketball. You mentioned a couple guys, like if Wagler's struggling or whatever, bring in another guy. I honestly think Illinois has 8, 9, even 10 guys that could potentially start for other Big Ten basketball teams. So I think having that level of depth is something Brad definitely leaned into too, especially after he saw last year, hey, maybe a guy could go down unexpectedly. Maybe 5 guys could go down unexpectedly. And I think, God forbid, again, knock on wood, if something like that were to happen, I think we'd be in a much better spot, kind of having that depth and having that availability. Hey, next guy up, let's change the lines like we do in hockey. So I think the team's in a great spot.
All right, Connor, before we move on to the things that we're grateful for as Illini fans, do you have a prediction for Friday?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's so tough. When I before every season, I like to go through and make a prediction video. I did have this one as a loss. I had it as like a close loss. I think I said like a 5 or 6 point loss, so covering the spread. I toe this line between optimism and realism.
Yeah.
I just think if my life depended on it and I had to put money on it, I think I would say we lose a close one. Anything could happen. It's definitely not a can't win. It's absolutely a can win. I think this team has shown they can compete with anyone in the country. But I just think, even though it is a neutral site, it's more of a road environment.
It's a huge home environment for
right. And it's funny that I tweeted about when we were at, how much we dropped for losing a neutral game at United Center. Everyone was like, it's not a neutral. I'm like, technically it is. And technically this will be a neutral as well.
Yeah.
But obviously it's really not. And that's kind of what that is. But yeah, I do think I see it being a close loss at the end of the day. I think we keep it very competitive. I think we show a lot of potential and heart, but obviously a win, do not rule that out whatsoever. And I don't think UConn is taking it lightly either.
Yeah, I say just keep it competitive. It's plus 8.5. If you're keeping it in that range, I think I'm feeling okay about it. I want them to pass the eye test and then really focus in on getting healthy and getting ready for that game in Nashville. Are you going to Nashville for that game?
I am not actually. I would love to, but it's actually on my birthday, so I got some plans back here. But I'll be watching for sure.
Okay, you and I, our birthday's 1 week apart because I'm actually doing my birthday early that week, just for the same.
Oh, nice.
Week. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So Connor and I, after this, we're going to discuss why, as Illini fans, it's a great time to be an Illini. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks make it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together, and you don't need to guess anyone's size. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. One of my favorite mantras on Locked On Illini, and I'm so grateful that those of you who've seen me out in the wild, you come up to me and say the phrase, "It's a great time to be an Illini." And sometimes when you have these disappointing losses against rivals like Wisconsin, sometimes you just have to be reminded of that. And it is Thanksgiving, and Connor and I, we figured we're going to throw a couple names out there, throw a couple ideas out there maybe, and just to remind you that right now is an unprecedented era in Illini athletics. And Connor, if you don't mind, I'm going to start this one because I think first and foremost, if you are an Illini fan, there's one name that sticks out beyond anybody else. And for me, that's Josh Whitman. Josh Whitman is the reason that our football program is at where it's at. He's the reason that the Illinois basketball program, both men's and women's, are at where they're at. I've said this on the show. We need to be so grateful that Josh Whitman played tight end for the University of Illinois, because if he hadn't, he would probably be off to a much more lucrative job, whether it's in college sports or whether it's just making a positive impact on this world. But for me, I don't think you can start thinking of things you're grateful for and not start with Josh Whitman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think and I've been lucky enough. I don't know if you've met him, but I've been lucky enough to meet him a few times, and he's every bit as impressive in person as he is, through the screen or virtually. I think when you look back to when Josh Whitman got hired, he kind of ended things with 3 simple words: "We will win." And I think you look back, I just got chills when I said that, because you look back at where the program was. I mean, Illinois was not winning in anything, pretty much except for men's golf. Golf has been a dynasty for a long time. But when you look back since Josh Whitman got here, I mean, women's basketball, what Shauna Green has done with that program, you almost can't put it into words. Men's basketball, football, tennis, gymnastics, golf, volleyball, like it's across the board. And I think that, again, the buck starts and stops with him. I think what he has done as far as not only putting the right pieces in place, but empowering those pieces, empowering the coaches, empowering the players. I mean, you see him, there's not a game he's not at. It's almost like this guy's in 2 places at once. He's over at Huff Hall for a volleyball game. He's at State Farm Center. It's like, how did he just do that?
Right.
He's unbelievable. I think has a case to be the best athletic director in the country. And that's a great one to start out with as far as who we're thankful for.
I think he is, no doubt about it. I've never met him personally. I've interviewed him like at Big Ten Media Days or whatnot. But, when Josh does those sort of media sessions, he's locked in. Like, you don't really get his personality. He's in work mode at those times. Connor, who are you going to nominate?
I think I'm going to throw. We're sticking with the staff theme, and obviously a lot of players we're thankful for too. But I just got to give a nod to Brad Underwood. I think just a couple quick stats I pulled up for this. Only 7 coaches in the country have been to 5 straight NCAA tournaments. Really should have been 6, but the COVID year got canceled. Only 7 in the country. Brad is one of those.
Yeah.
3 Big Ten championships, should have been 4 in 5 years. 20+ wins for 6 straight years. The only Big Ten team with more conference wins in those years is Purdue, and I think it's only by 1 or 2. Illinois is tied for 5th in first-round draft picks since 2021. These are things that people probably would have slapped me in the face for saying 5-10 years ago that would be true of Illinois basketball in 2025. You would not have believed it. These are things that you would have expected of a UConn or something, a powerhouse program like that. And, wake up and smell the roses. Illinois is one of those programs. I know people are going to talk about the national championship, talk about Final Four drought, stuff like that. Like it or not, Illinois is nationally relevant and one of the more so nationally relevant programs in the country. And I think, we talked about Josh Whitman. Brad Underwood is a big, big piece of that. And I think we haven't even hit, where we're going yet. We're still going up. So shout out to Brad.
Yeah, no, fantastic. With Brad in particular, what I love about him is his adaptability. I know people are talking about the fact that he hasn't won a national championship yet. Brad's still got another, 7 to 10 years of coaching left. And what I like about Brad is we've seen it here at Illinois. If a certain system is not working, he does not mind looking forward and trying to figure out what might work. There's a lot of coaches in both college football and basketball who are very stubborn and insist that their system will work. Brad's never had that issue. We've seen him recruit top recruiting classes and then jump to the transfer portal. He was early on the transfer portal. He was early on the international recruiting. Now, it's one of those where his ability to, always look to see what the NBA is doing, because he understands that's kind of whatever the NBA is doing, the college basketball world is going to start catching up a couple years after. So he's kind of always ahead of the curve. Brad, you already listed the stats. He's absolutely one of the guys that we have to be sitting here grateful for. And quite honestly, I am optimistic that eventually he's going to, for a while, we weren't sure about the Sweet 16. He got over that. Elite 8, is this year the team to do it? Maybe, but even if it isn't, the way he constructs his roster each and every year, I know this Illinois team is going to be competitive. That 20+ win streak is absolutely incredible at this point. And so, it's just hopefully he can keep it going, and it's all about health altogether. But Connor, we're running a little long here. So before I let you go, can you let the folks know where they can find all your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much, Sonny, for having me on. An absolute honor and a privilege. You can see below there at the Connor Pills. That's me on Twitter or X, I guess. No one calls it X. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. That's also me on Instagram. And then on TikTok, I do make quite a bit of Illini and Chicago sports content. And that's just at Connor Pills Knows Ball. Chi-Town Chandi is my kind of alter ego on there. And the reason that started is because I have another main TikTok page where I do music and stuff, which people are shocked to hear. But that's kind of the sports stuff that you guys will probably be interested in. But yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. Always love to talk ball with a guy that's clearly so passionate about the Illini as well. And it's been a great way to kind of start the Thanksgiving season here.
Yeah, I can't say this enough. If you're a fan of Illini sports, find Connor on your favorite social media. It's nice to have a daily injection of positivity when it comes to this Illini sports, because usually the algorithm, if you're an Illini fan, is not nearly as optimistic. Thank you again, Connor. Hopefully I'll have you back soon.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thanks.
And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Locked On. Please, I hope all of you get to enjoy your feasts on Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving. You can see me on Black Friday. I'll be here right on this channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Send this to all your friends. I'll be live immediately after the game against UConn. Should be a good one. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.